With the first Harry Potter film setting up a world with a decent enough plot, and the second film taking those things to the next level, what would the third film do? The third book is curious in that though it introduces a number of characters and threads that would be important in later novels, it's the only entry in the series to have nothing to do with Voldemort, and thus feels the most a departure from the rest. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was the first in the movie series not to be directed by Chris Columbus. And sadly, it was the only Harry Potter movie to be directed by Alfonso Cuaron. For those unfamiliar, Cuaron is one of the finest directors working today. He's the man behind E2 Mama Tambien, Gravity, and the amazing Children of Men. And it's his mesmerizing take on the series, as well as a damn interesting story and characters, that makes Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban the best of the Harry Potter films. Harry's return to Hogwarts comes under unusual circumstances due to the recent escape of a dangerous convict, Sirius Black, from Azkaban prison. He's the only person ever to escape, and as a devout follower of Voldemort, is coming after Harry. So the school is fitted with Dementors, horrifying, ghoulish creatures meant to protect the students. But Sirius Black is on his way regardless, and he and other omens are forcing Harry to be on his guard. Compared to the first two films, the scene structure of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is very well done. It takes more needed liberties with the source, and it really pays off. Rather than move from one class or plot point to another, each major scene, with the exception of Aunt Marge, not only has a purpose to the main plot, but the transitions are so much smoother. There are still a few pointless scenes, but the film on a whole flows so much better. I like how the Whomping Willow is used as a symbol of the changing seasons. Its story is quite different from the previous films. There's no great looming threat, rather a small, shadowy one. The only person in danger is Harry, and I like how he doesn't actively seek it out or try to be the hero. Rather, it comes to him. A series of reveals make the film a bit of a mystery as you wonder who Sirius Black is, what the nature of his relationship with Harry's parents was, and what's really going on. We're given just the right amount of foreshadowing to remain intrigued throughout. I love both the little things like the references to Scabbard's condition and the full moon appearing as Lupin's worst fear, as well as the bigger things like Harry being stalked by the black dog omen of death, and his following the supposedly dead Peter Pettigrew around the school. Though Snape's class of werewolves all but explicitly states that Lupin is one. It really keeps you guessing, and many of the reveals are legitimately unexpected. Additionally, there's a focus on Harry delving into his personal past, particularly his parents' personalities and relationships before he was born, and it's very fascinating. It both allows the viewer another facet of this world by learning about these other people in this other time, while also growing Harry as a character. As I said before, Harry doesn't really act the hero part in this film, which does a great job grounding him and actually making him a relatable character. He's still not the most interesting of protagonists, but he's developing a personality of his own. His flaws and fears are accentuated with the arrival of the Dementors, who scare him to the point of fainting. Yeah, I don't quite buy that fear self thing. Apparently Harry is FDR. Those Dementors are frightening enough anyone could faint. Daniel Radcliffe does a good job continuing to improve as an actor. Rupert Grint, too, is steadily getting better. Ron doesn't play a huge part in this movie apart from awkward moments with Hermione, but he's fine. And thank you, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, for whatever you did to Emma Watson. This movie was her time to shine. After being sidelined for a lot of the last film, it's only fair she'd have more to do in this one. And Emma Watson, though not great, is astonishingly capable in this film, managing to hold her own in a number of instances. I don't know what happened between movies to make her a good actress, but I'm very impressed. Hermione came off as natural, reasonably intellectual, and she got to punch Malfoy in the face. Tom Felton, it seems, is really starting to play off his character's douchebaggery, and is enjoying himself in the process. I can't say much for the other student characters, as the likes of Neville, Ginny, and Percy only show up briefly to be consistent with the series, and no new students are introduced, apart from this downer kid. But I was pleased to see a significant Fred and George scene. People tend to forget that the Weasley twins in the movies have much less wit and entertaining banter than in the books, where they were often the best part of a number of scenes. Robbie Coltrane gets some good moments as Hagrid. That suit of his is hilarious. It's wonderful to have Snape, who like Hermione took a relatively backseat role in the last film, back as a significant part of the story. Snape has a few standout scenes that Alan Rickman performs excellently, of course, but it's his part in the last act that gives his character more layers. While he is acting out of personal motives, twice he comes to the kid's rescue. For all he knows, Sirius is the evil man everyone says he is. And both his confrontation of Sirius and Lupin in the Shrieking Shack, and his later acting as a human shield between the werewolf and the students, show the responsibility and care for Harry and his friends that hadn't been seen yet in the movies. The film has a ton of new performances that are generally terrific. First off, this is the inaugural appearance of Michael Gambon as Dumbledore, taking over for the late Richard Harris. Gambon's fun, he's certainly got a voice that demands your attentiveness, and he delivers even the oddest of lines convincingly. He just doesn't quite embody Dumbledore as perfectly as Harris did. The delightful Emma Thompson is abundantly eccentric as Professor Trelawney. One of the great British character actors, Timothy Spall, leaves an impression as Peter Pettigrew, if for nothing else in his appearance alone. In minor roles, Robert Hardy and Pam Ferris are alright, Julie Christie, of all people, has a surprise cameo as Madame Rosmerta, and Lee Ingleby from Master and Commander is great for the little screen time he has as Stan Shunpike. I'd have liked if he'd returned at some point. And in an off-color but funny choice, Lenny Henry voices a sarcastic, shrunken head on the night bus. However, Dawn French as a fat lady is incredibly distracting, and her one scene in the plot necessitates it. I can't take her seriously. It doesn't help this is only a year after she spoofed Harry Potter for comic relief. But the two new performances that really transform this movie are Gary Oldman as Sirius Black and David Thewlis as Professor Lupin. Oldman, as with every role, really commits to the bitterness and roughness of his character, but also the insanity. The moment where Harry pins him down is especially indicative of this. Oldman's more than talented enough to play Sirius as a madman one minute and a carrying guardian the next, and make it believable. He and Thompson are a couple of my favorite actors, and here they really demonstrate why. Sirius as a character is incredibly fascinating before we even meet him because of all the build-up, his history with James and Lily, his cunning resourcefulness and fearlessness. And once we do know him, he's really likable, and all those traits become cool instead of foreboding. As for Professor Lupin, from the first time I read the book, he was my favorite character in the entire series. His werewolf condition aside, he's the ideal teacher, never once endangering his students while at the same time relating well to them and proving himself skillful and wise. You can feel how much he's inspiring Harry, and the relationship the two of them have is very endearing. David Thewlis, who was almost Quirrell in the first film, is absolutely wonderful, proving how much of an underrated actor he is. Lupin is the first character who feels like a father figure to Harry, which makes it tragic for the moment it looks like Lupin's betrayed him. But in the end, he's a truly selfless, guiding figure who brings out the best in Harry, and I just love him for that. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban also introduced a new animal character in Buckbeak. The CG in the hippogriff is definitely dated, but he looks nowhere near as fake as some previous effects. In fact, none of the effects look very fake. Even ones as ludicrous as Aunt Marge look convincing enough. The werewolf is properly menacing. That one shot of him in the moonlight is particularly chilling. Oh, and for kids watching this movie, the Dementors are scary as I think it's a rule that every fantasy series at some point has to include Grim Reaper figures. The tattered and worn cloaks of the Dementors, their inhuman hands and mouths, and how they float eerily everywhere is really spooky. J.K. Rowling, the visual effects and sound design teams in this movie deserve an applause. The music is also more of an intrinsic part of this film than in the past. The John Williams score is really impressive and magical in places, but it's also used to highlight the unusual tone. Like the playing of a symphony while Marge is floating away, or the fast tempo of the night bus, or the really strange Hogwarts choir singing a tribute song to the witches of Macbeth out of nowhere. In fact, there are a lot of strange things in this movie that set it apart from the rest of the series. And they're all a byproduct of the fact that with Cuaron at the helm, this franchise is reinventing itself. This is evident in the production design, which is just as impressive as ever, but is a lot more faded. In fact, a word to describe this movie in its most positive way is grey, both in terms of its overall look and character deconstruction. Cuaron leaves a stamp on this film's entire visual style. The cinematography is really different and interesting. In fact, the whole movie is shot so creatively. The Whomping Willow thrashing Harry and Hermione around, the shot of Harry looking through the clock tower, the pan in on Lupin's eye as he begins to transform, the bridge, which was never a part of the castle in either the books or the previous movies, but somehow adds so much to the environment. As I mentioned before, there are pointless, inconsequential scenes, but most of them aren't from the book, and I really don't mind them. I think it's because there's a sense of playfulness to them. In prior movies, these kind of scenes were included out of obligation, but here it feels like Cuaron, the screenwriter, just wanted to let the film breathe, to inject some levity, or just bask in the curious minutiae of this world. I get this from the opening scene of Harry practicing magic in bed, or when he tries to shut the monster book, or when he and his fellow Gryffindor boys are just hanging out, realistically fooling around with magic trees. Even the Malfoy humiliation scene in Hogsmeade doesn't come off as a waste of time. But many of the more essential scenes are conveyed stunningly as well. The first time Harry rides Buckbeak is magical, and Daniel Radcliffe can let out one hell of a The night bus scene is really energetic, absolutely creative, and wonderfully bizarre. I love the Bogart scene, which is already a really original idea, and the Marauders map on a whole I'm a huge fan of. I've even got my own copy. The scene where Harry discovers Pettigrew on the map is really suspenseful and cryptic. Every moment between Harry and Lupin works seamlessly, and the Patronus bits are incredibly powerful. And this movie marks the first time Harry Potter plays with time travel, which has always been a favorite theme of mine. I love the time turner, it's such a clever device. And seeing repeated moments from different vantage points, I actually find very exciting. That's one of the reasons I really like Back to the Future Part 2. Though I like the first two Harry Potter films, they do admittedly seem to run together, and the last 5 certainly do. But this third film is unique among the franchise in how strange and unconventional it is. I really believe Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is the closest to a Terry Gilliam-directed Harry Potter movie there is, and emphasizes how awesome a director on the series he'd have been. But Alfonso Cuaron more than made up for it. For almost every poor point, there's a justification. Yeah, the overheard conversation revealing Sirius as Harry's godfather was too convenient and poorly exposited, but doesn't make his vow to meet and kill Sirius any less emotionally resonating. Yeah, it's pretty obvious Harry saw himself instead of his father casting the Patronus that saved his life, but doesn't make the moment when he actually does it any less triumphant. This is the only film in the series that doesn't feature Voldemort, and maybe it's because of that, how the story favors character over a grand conflict, and how it's incredibly stylistically unique, visually splendid, compelling, consistent, and directed by a remarkably talented auteur to boot, that makes it the greatest of the Harry Potter series, and one of the best fantasy movies of the last couple decades. Now I intend to relive Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by playing the movie tie-in video game, classically, on the Nintendo GameCube. This game's still pretty fun. Now I remember why I stopped playing this.